Joining me now, Mary O'Grady, Wall Street Journal opinion columnist and editorial board member. She is also a Fox Business contributor. This is just the unemployment insurance. It's $163 billion that was spent in error just in the unemployment insurance. Billions of it probably fraud.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting, 163 billion, it just seems like a rounding error at this point when we're talking about trillions, but that's a lot of money. That's 9 zeros. And as a total of the unemployment insurance, it was about almost 20%. And, as you say, these were criminal groups. One thing we have to keep in mind is the states have the responsibility here to make sure that they're not, giving money, cutting checks to dead people. And they can put those systems in place, but they have to care about it and do it. And so this bill would basically give them the incentive to do it by saying to them, for the money that you're able to recover, you can keep 25%, and you can use that toward actually making people better off in your state. So there's an incentive for states to cooperate if the bill is passed.
And some of the states have been trying to crack down on at least claw back money that was fraudulent, including California, of all places.
Yeah,
you wouldn't think that, but they've ID'd what, and this is in the editorial, $11 billion in fraudulent payments, and they're looking at another $20 billion just in the state.
Yeah, California is a leading proponent of this idea, and it needs to be done. But I think what should be bothersome to Americans is, okay, we were in a crisis. A lot of things were done very quickly, but we live in an era of very sophisticated technology. If you have the will to actually make sure that money that you're handing out during an unemployment crisis goes to people who deserve it, it can be done. It's just a matter of having the political will to do it. And I think that's what's been missing here. And that's why this bill is crafted in a way so that there's an incentive for states to say, yeah, we're going to try to get this money back, and we're going to try to make sure going forward that it can't happen.
And this is just the unemployment insurance fraud. And if you look in terms of the money that was stolen, I'm leaving out the Paycheck Protection Program. There was at least, based on the estimates, more than $100 billion that was stolen. And the Justice Department, bit by bit, are finding these people and charging them and getting convictions. But if you go through some of the recent cases that were filed or the plea deals that they've inked, there was a man in Richmond, Virginia, guilty to $1 million paycheck protection fraud. He submitted 38 loan applications to institutions. There was a money manager here who, again, was just sentenced to 51 months in prison for $6.8 million in fraud of paycheck protection, 21 loan applications to 13 lenders. There were people driving Lamborghinis all around Miami that they bought with stolen money. It's a failure of big government, and I fully acknowledge that Donald Trump was the president at the time, but big government fails. They have no control. If you believe that government knows best, well, you're an idiot.
Well, I have to agree with you that the real shock here is not, as I said, in a crisis, things go wrong. It's a sort of fog of war that's occurring. And you remember back in 2020, I mean, it was kind of scary, the shutdowns and the unemployment and so forth, and what would people do, how would they eat, and so forth. But it is an illustration of how out of control Washington is, that they would just, this amount of money, $163 billion, like I said, 9 zeros, and it's like, oops. That just seems like it doesn't pass the laugh test.
So every time the Democrats now stand up and say, we need more money for this, again, on deck is more money for school security. But there's $100 billion roughly that is unspent by public schools across the country that was handed out last year in the $2 trillion aid package that was passed under President Biden. So why do you use that? It's not even spent yet, and they have to spend it on the safety of the schools, but it was like health safety, but they have to spend it or they lose it. But this is how reckless we are at a time when we can't afford to be financially reckless.
Yeah, I mean, I think that we have an election in November. There's a huge opportunity for any politician on either side of the aisle to pick up this issue and run with it. And people care about it because they're paying, taxes, and they're in a recession, and it's not a moment of great affluence in the United States, in the U.S. economy. So this is an opportunity for any politician to run with basically something that would express more responsible government to the population, to the electorate.
Mary, great to see you. Thank you so much. Please come back soon. Mary Grady.